Hello, everybody. It's Casey Cadaver here with the Roxy Horror Casey Show. Doing our number seven of 31 of the 31 on 31 Halloween Day series. Um, Zombie Edition. Uh, Tonight was 28 days later. I really need to start taking pictures of the setup for my phone camera, because every time it just gets more creative and weird. You are currently sitting on two pots and leaning against another one because I was candle making while watching. um, this movie is fantastic. It's kind of a coming of age movie for me, as it came out when I was about 14 or so. So it was kind of like the gory horror age when I was growing up. I was kind of finding my footing in horror. And I remember when it came out, it was it caused a lot of confusion because it was one of the first like foreign films that came out, that I remember. It came out to theaters that people could go see. And by foreign film, I mean just everybody had an accent. It didn't take place in America. Um, so that was new for us. Um, but it had a big impact. The zombies are fast now. They're not just eating human flesh. They're not so much undead. It's more the viral style of zombies, if you haven't seen it. And yeah, you could say any zombie infection is viral, but this was straight up just a virus that got people and made them go insane. The rage virus, um, which I like. I like the premise in the beginning. I totally forgot about that. Activists come in, release chimpanzees that have been experimented on and been shown the horrors of humanity, but have been affected by the rage virus, but they were using an inhibitor, so they seem like normal monkeys. Um, which was really cool and weird. Why would they have inhibitors? I guess to try to see how strong the inhibitors were, or maybe the virus needed to be conditioned to be rageful, to show rage. Like the virus was just kind of null until it was shown rageful things. The initial rage baiting, apparently, was this movie, and concocted in Europe. Um, I like that premise. It seems realistic. Um, I love animals, but that just seems realistic. People bursting into a lab and freeing a bunch of test subjects, rage virus filled chimpanzees without knowing exactly what's going on or what they're unleashing. um, so I like that. I like that idea. Let me get my soda stream here. It's my attempt to making moon mist. It's a mostly starry and a little bit of Mountain Dew. It's pretty close. The it is kind of funny. It takes you out just slightly how drab and depressing and bland everything looks, just to try to give you that sense of dread of how dead everything is. But then every time you see a can of soda, it is a bright blue Pepsi can. Like, I was waiting for a jingle to come up when he first took his sip coming out of the hospital, because it was like right there, Pepsi. And like several other times they're drinking Pepsi. I've been to Europe. I've seen a few things. I had a Coke in Europe, but I am a Pepsi guy. But at that time, you would think, yep, they only drink Pepsi in in Europe, except for that one weird soda he asked for when he got rescued by the two other people. Um, oh, I thought it was really impressive because how low budget it looks. Um, it looks really low budget, and that was on purpose. Um, God, I just watched it. Danny Boyle. He was already established director and writer, and so he wanted this movie not to look amateur, but to look low budget and as if you're seeing it from a very human ground floor um, viewpoint. So seeing that, it was still not incredibly high budget. So it was to look low budget, um, because it was, but at the same time it was on purpose, right? Filmmaking, it's an art. But I had to look it up and how they shot this completely empty street scenes. It's pretty impressive. They shot at balls early in the morning, and they had to spread the litter and just try to stop the very few commuters that early in the morning. Just like, hey, hold on, let's get this scene real quick. Which is impressive because if going back and watch it, like those streets are empty. I remember like looking through some of the background, see if you see one thing moving, and nothing's moving. They nailed that, and that must have been probably took the most time to shoot. But I love little facts about movies like that. I love how they able to pull things off that seem they're seemingly impossible, and not by like, how did they get the dragon to fly through the buildings or something like that. No, I like the just logistically, with society still going on, how do they accomplish these scenes? And I think that's really cool how they did that. Um, Fast forward, he's taken in by Selena, I think Matt. Um, and the Matt tells a pretty weird joke in the beginning, and then they help, oh my god, they help main character find his parents who took their own life, and it was very tragic, but very tragic for him to find them that way. Even leave a letter to him. It's pretty. It's pretty bleak. This movie's pretty bleak. It was another one of those, like, I've seen horror movies, I've seen action movies, I've seen bloody things and that, but this is the first like bleak movie I remember seeing, with like a heavy veil, a heavy blanket of like realism, like what would really happen in these situations. I remember that sinking into me pretty heavy, which kind of deterred me from watching it again. I always had these scenes. I saw the scenes of like the rage victims, shaking, and the red eyes, and the ferocity, and the feral nature of them being very scary, very intimidating, um, very infectious, if you will. Um, because that's something I hadn't seen before. I don't think many people on this side of the pond had seen, um, of our generation had seen. Like fast zombies, like that's the one thing that was supposed to make zombies feel somewhat like goofy and safe is the fact that they were slow. These were not. Um, so fast forward to them discovering Frank and Hannah, uh, the father daughter team they find in the building, and being welcomed in so graciously. Um, and the thought back and forth, like who needs who more? Do Nate sorry, do they need Frank and Hannah more, or does Frank and Hannah need them more for survival or movability? And they all come to the realization that we all need each other. That's social commentary. We need each other to survive, to forward, to progress to something safer and more comfortable. Uh, and man, the tunnel scene when they decide to drive through the tunnel, they take Frank's taxi, load it all up, and go through this dark tunnel with cars piled up. And yeah, you're hearing Cillian Murphy in the background just going, "This is a shit idea." You know how I know it's a shit idea? Because it's obviously a shit idea. Is one of my favorite lines I think I've ever heard. With someone trying to speak logic into a horror movie. Well, I know how I know it's a shit idea because it's obviously a shit idea. They just ride through, get a flat tire, fix that. A little suspense, a little teamwork. Uh, just barely escape the zombie horde, the rageful horde, and uh, and then they catch a radio signal, and they try to follow that to this barricade where they think they're about to be safe. And I think personally, this leads to one of the saddest and unfortunate zombie movie deaths of all time for me. Is they kind of go back and forth between having a good time. They stay in these ruins and they get some good sleep. They picnic. Frank just kind of reminisces and enjoys this scene of wild horses. Well, now wild horses just running through fields like a family and getting this sense of togetherness and that things might be okay and that they found their own zombie survival family. And I think even Cillian Murphy's character calls him dad when he comes out of a bad dream. And then they find the barricade, which this confuses me. They find the barricade and seemingly abandoned, right? Seemingly gone. And Frank's visibly upset for obvious reasons. Loses his temper a little bit, loses his cool, which is rough to see from the father figure. Makes everybody a little bit more on edge and scary when like the father figure is losing his shit. He meanders off and takes his anger out more on a crow and the body that's somehow on top of a scaffolding barrier blockade drips some blood down into his eye, and it's heartbreaking because he's just like he's coming to terms with what's happening. You can almost see him go through all of the stages of grief like in that moment, which is again for a low budget movie, like the acting is pretty great, especially by the actor who played Frank. Because you watch him like, okay, no, I'm okay, you in denial, and he's just okay, I think this is happening, and then you kind of want to watch him like wash away. If I just get this out of my eye, I can survive. Like, please just let this happen. And then he sees his daughter, and then you see like acceptance. And he goes, "Hey, no, 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 I love you." And she's like, "Dad," and he like pushes her away, and she keeps getting closer. Like, God damn it, child, listen. Grabs her, throws her away, and then he starts turning. And man, it's just these guys just called him dad, and they had the little safety net, the little group, and it's just such an unfortunate happening. Such a passive way to get infected. And then like they've been there for like a solid 10, 15 minutes walking around, and that's when the military guys started to pop up and shoot Frank down and rescue everybody. And though I wonder, not that they could see him coming, but later on you may wonder if they took out Frank on purpose, like waited for him to go, or they wanted to see how they could take out one male. Um, which then leads us to them being taken to the base and getting a hot shower for the first time and getting wined and dined by this small military operation in this gargantuan house. Um, and everything seems good, but just in a zombie movie, as soon as things seem good, they get worse. And yeah, things start feeling sketchy. One of the military people, one of the sergeants, is starting to kind of rebel. Sorry, it's been a long week. Started to rebel and just kind of not. You could tell he wasn't comfortable with a lot of the decisions being made, and you're curious, like, okay, what does he see that's not going on? That's going on here that no one else is seeing just yet. Um, and this is another reason that kept me away from the movie is that basically, uh, the head soldier, the leader, takes Killing Murphy off to the side, and it was like, hey, I promised them. How else do you keep 9 men going? You promise them women. You promise, and he says it in a way where it almost makes sense, but it's another one of those bits where the way you go about it is terrible, um, and what you allow is terrible. He goes, well, I promised them women, so that fact, I promised them hope that there will be a future, and it's not just us. It's not just us here. We will continue. We will go, and that's how he justifies these terrible actions when really they're just terrible actions. And this might have been my first also exposure to that kind of content, that kind of theme in a movie, which made me very uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable thing to talk about. It's a comfortable thing to do, but it's a reality. It's a it's bleak. Again, this movie is incredibly bleak in those themes. Um, but it's almost good of them not to shy away from it. Uh, but in my mind, when I first watched this movie, that's where this movie stopped. I think I watched it very tired, and I kind of nodded off during that time or something. I just remember like understanding what was about to happen to Serena and Hannah, who was a very young girl, and like, oh my god, they're really doing this. And they take Kelly Murphy and the sergeant out to murder them, to take them out, put them in the burn pile, and they rescue themselves, I think, and get away. At least Killian does, and comes back, and one man, like Far Cry video game style, wreaks havoc on the whole station. I mean, you think like, oh, you look at this gigantic building and you kind of get blips of how many guys are there, but he said there was only 9 dudes there. So in the grand scheme of things, yeah, 9 versus 1 doesn't sound good, but spread out and becoming more unhinged and unorganized, he comes back and freaking Rambo's the place, setting free their resident zombie that they're trying to learn from to see how long it takes for them to starve and what else they can learn. Yeah. These reviews getting to me. Yeah. Uh, it's awesome to see, and I'm really glad I watched this movie. I thought I could do this review without watching it again, but I wanted to give it a watch, and I'm glad because it ends way better than I remember it being. They get away. Um, After Killing gets shot because the leader is hiding in their car and wants his revenge. And then Hannah, after putting, oh my word, this is one thing that really bothered me. Hannah comes like speeding towards her dad towards a gas truck. I'm sorry, petrol truck. And like gives it a little burnout drift. And a little smirk to her dad. Like, I know what I'm doing. I was like, girl, we don't want to ruin fun in the world. You can have fun, but don't mess with our only mode of transportation right now around a goddamn petrol truck. No, no, God no. So I guess at some point, the training, the montage of them driving around, she became some kind of expert driver and backed the car up. So the leader gets ripped out by the resident zombie from the back window, and they speed off through the gate into the sunset and fix up Killian and live happily ever after around a bunch of sheep. So they get seen by a plane. You're never quite sure if the plane comes back. Um, which is really cool, actually, considering 28 years later, because you just see the plane fly over them with a big quilted sign, hello sign of them getting noticed by the plane. Like you don't know what happens after that. Which they seem to be in pretty good spot to survive for a while, but do they get rescued? Do they live out their days in this field? Um, you do hear that they're in a quarantine zone, and one of the military guy kind of started mutiny or tried to mutinize against it, was talking about like, hey, this is contained. We're in a quarantine zone. How does it get infected across the ocean? How does it get infected over the mountains through water? Like, how does that happen? But you do hear in a news broadcast that it got to New York, so that would be pretty bad. Um, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to do any spoilers, but 28 years later, kind of has this idea. Um, kind of talks about what happened with all that. So if you haven't seen it, watch it, and I'll be doing a review about that in a couple days. But yeah, this movie is, and to me, this movie is a modern classic, like the zombie equivalent of. It sounds weird, but the zombie equivalent of The Ring, right? Like maybe not as widespread, but it definitely stood out in my generation. Um, just being so different and so bleak. Um, technically a foreign film, and also being kind of like not quite lost footage or found footage, but low budget camera. Which, okay, last thing about the low budget camera, I actually looked it up at this scene because there's a scene where they're driving down what seemingly is like a very peaceful garden road. There's a bunch of flowers in the scene, but the camera is either so low res or like slightly out of focus. You're seeing these flowers right in the front of the camera, like right in front, but they have no shape. And they kind of have this watery look to them where it almost looks like a painting. Like, how did you shoot making it look like a painting? And I remember seeing that, them driving the car, the whole family's together, trying to drive towards safety. And in my mind, I interpreted that, it looks like a painting, which is a false depiction of something. So in my mind, like that is a false depiction of safety, of their beautiful moment being short lived. Like this happiness is not exactly a reality they can invest in. It is a false sense. It's a false veil of security that they're living right now. It's just a painting. It's not reality. And I thought that was really cool. So if I was going to give this 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10, I would probably give this movie a solid 3.5, 3.5, 4. I'll say 3.75. Um, because I love the low budget. I love the believability of the characters. It gets okay. We'll stick with 3.5 because Hannah, this little girl who just has so much to say. Um, and when she does, it's just takes you right the fuck out of the movie. Oh, Hannah. Yeah, it kind of takes you right out. She just has these weird like little bits when she has to talk, and she's only she's on Valium for one of her bits, which makes sense, but she's not on Valium for the first part when you meet her, and it seems like she is. Um, so yeah, that's it. So I give it a good 3.5. Um, I'll say 3.75, 3.75. It's a great movie. Without its flaws and all that. 4. We're going with 4 because I like the blood, I like the gore, I like the premise, I like the bleakness, I like the execution, I like the low budget look. We're saying 4, confident 4. Not many figures. Okay. Um, thank you for joining us. See us on all the socials, and um, keep up with us for the other 31 and 31. Catch you later. Stay spooky.